So after we recorded, MLSE, Keith Pelley in particular, wrote an email to all season ticket holders, basically saying, we apologize. We know how bad the team is. We promised this. We haven't come through yet. Be patient, please. And he refers to the fan unrest at the game this past weekend where banners were removed and an entire fan group left the stadium. So, it's kind of your typical corporate email with a signature, actual signature on the bottom. So it sounds really personal and everyone feels, I can't believe Keith Pelley actually emailed me personally. That's great.
Hey, Shards, before you go, one of the words that stuck out for you, because you actually dropped it in, was the word respect. We respect. And I think that triggered you a little bit because what you said in the dark web was, I don't think he really does.
No,
I don't think MLSE does.
Fans when you remove banners, which weren't, I don't think they were too aggressive. The banners. I mean, my God, we see so much worse in professional soccer, which doesn't condone this necessarily. But from what I saw from the banners, they weren't too egregious. They were passionate and fueled with anger, and I don't think I've seen the fan base as angry as this for a long time. Maybe since post the Aaron Winter era, they were pretty angry. I think, were they not? Was that there's some protests around that time, I think, when the Craig?
Yeah, they weren't happy, but outside of 4 years, it's been pretty much a disaster.
Yeah. Well, my mate Scott, he's been a season ticket holder since day one. And he's a huge sports fan, maybe the biggest sports fan. I know he loves all sports and he knows them all very, very well, travels around the world to watch sports. And he's been a day oneer at TFC. And he actually responded to Keith Pelley. I said, can I read this email out? And he goes, yeah, sure. And I think it's pretty bang on, actually. It's pretty well said, but it's an indictment of where the club's at right now. Because Scott's a well-spoken guy. He's educated. He's not a moron, just angry. He actually has patience and understands how sports clubs and teams work. He goes, management, as a day one member supporter, it is sad to see the current state of the club. 4 winning seasons going into our 18th year indicates just how many times from different people we've heard this message over the years and how many times the follow-through of management's vision has failed. What's extremely unfortunate now is that BMO Field is not even a place fans can try to get through a game by drowning our sorrows. The club should be more embarrassed by what you charge for a beer than the actual play on the field, and that says a lot because the quality of play is absolutely atrocious. If I could recommend anything, it would be to stop fans that do show up to support the team. I haven't bought a beer in the stadium in 5 years because it makes me want to vomit every time I see the price. Yet it just keeps increasing. FFS, it's just beer, not an elixir of the gods, which isn't true, Scotty, and you damn well know that it is. Which is sad because it used to be an enjoyable way to spend an afternoon and have a couple of beers with friends. Bear with me. Okay. Oh, for God's sakes. He didn't send the full thing. Oh, there we go. Okay. Unfortunately, this is shaping up to be my last year as a season ticket member. When the play on the field and the price of beverages align to only incite disappointment and rage, you've lost the spirit of community and fun and left us all in a state of just feeling taken advantage of, no matter how your words might try to indicate otherwise. And then a couple of really angry and sad emojis, which I think really push home the point. But when a fan like Scott though is probably not going to renew, that's a problem because he's been loyal since day one, and he's not the only one out there. And I'm sure Keith Pelley is aware of this. But by removing banners and taking away the fans' voice, that isn't helping the situation. And you got to see action as opposed to just words at this point. Now, they can't do much right now. I get it. Not till the next window. But I don't know what the solution is. But that's just kind of a good example of the fan unrest right now at the club.
And all they want is a competitive side. They don't even have to be winning necessarily the league, but just being competitive, challenging for playoff spots, which they haven't done for 3 or 4 years.
I don't know. I don't even know if they need that, Gregor. There's a level of what Scott kind of says is it's about the environment that, you're overcharging me for beers. You're probably overcharging for food. If the event is still fun and the community can still get together, we'll be okay with, even less than competitive, but you're breaking our soul and the spirit of it. And that's what I probably would agree with most, is other than you're not supposed to say that word he used. That is against the algorithm for YouTube. So we'll make sure we cut that word off. Yeah.
Bleep that out. Yes.
Yeah, we'll bleep that out.
Why are you trying to break our podcast, Scott?
Exactly. You have to use the word grape, is what I've heard. So,
grape, is that what it is?
Yes, you have to use grape. But I know I go back to, I think he feels taken advantage of, right? Because the community has been broken.
That's precisely it. And I do wonder, when you see the banner issue, for example, does MLSE have people that understand soccer culture? I'm not sure they do.
No chance.
No chance, right?
No chance. They know the culture of the NHL and the NBA, and we know what that's like. If you put or you say anything at an NBA game that's a negative, you're thrown out. A banner thrown out. Wasn't it years ago they were kicking people out of Leaf games for wearing bags on their heads?
Oh, really?
I actually wore a bag on my head at a Leaf game once. I wasn't thrown out.
You did?
That was back in the 90s. Yeah, I did.
You were a super fan? Super fan?
Me and my mate, Fat Steve. Yeah.
No wonder you couldn't pick up girls
Your
back then
mate,
either.
Fat Steve?
Yeah. But it's PHAT.
Is there another
Fat
Steve?
Steve.
So there's just regular Steve and also Fat Steve?
There's Fat Steve, yeah. He's a
Okay.
legend, absolute legend
Very
of human
nice.
being. Yeah. No, he's doing a very bad time. I actually had a number 55 on the bag, like Larry Murphy was wearing number 55, and I wasn't, I fully admit, a sophisticated fan by that point. I was just an idiot, and I didn't understand how great Larry Murphy actually is. And he had a tough time in Toronto. Left, went to Detroit, won some cups, great player. But I feel bad now to Larry Murphy out there who's probably listening and watching. I apologize for wearing a bag over my head with number 55 on it, because you weren't as bad as I thought you were. Anyway.
But I think you've hit on something there. You said I wasn't a sophisticated fan. As a fan, you're not meant to be sophisticated. There's
True.
that mutual respect, and you're part of the community, and you're part of the fold of the club. And that's what stuck in
Where
my
Kelly
head.
Parker, where Kelly Parker pinched you, the fold.
Correct. Yes. But Pelley said our supporter groups expressed their frustration on Saturday. We not only respect that, we expect it when we fall short. So if you do, and there's a respect that's built in there, then you allow them to express themselves. And obviously it can't move into hateful speech or misogyny or racism or anything like that. Anything that's political. But if you're just expressing your frustration with the way that the club is run, and you're not, again, it's not going into really personal territory, or it's hate-filled, or it's a criticism of the club and the on-pitch performances, let it be there. That's part of all of it, so that when you climb out of this eventually and you get to a high, or it's compared to when you were in this trough in terms of performance and the way that it's been run, then you can appreciate it more. But if you wipe it away as if it doesn't exist, you not only insult the fans, but you don't appreciate the high nearly as much.
Yeah, well said. Michael Hull commented on our YouTube channel. Meanwhile, in Europe, the players' answer to the Ultras about crap performances, I guess it's different to franchise teams here in North America. And listen, I think it goes too far in Europe when the Ultras, basically imprison at times the players. You are not leaving till you listen to us. But often you'll see the players in the Serie A, for example, go over to the Ultras and they'll stand there. Who was it this past, was it this earlier this season, or maybe it's last season, an Italian team that they went there and they all stood in the line and were just, I don't know, eviscerated by the Ultras who just hammered them. But they just stood there and they took it out of respect.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember the team though.
I don't remember either, but
it happens often in Italy, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think it goes too far, don't you think, Jimmy, in some regards? I'm not saying we go to those extremes, but you have to acknowledge that the fans are more than just consumers. They're a big part. They are the beating heartbeat of a club.
Well,
and
they're
you have to
everything.
appreciate their emotions.
Without the fans, there is no game, really, is there? So you have to respect how they're feeling. You can't just go to the fans when things are great and clap them and say thank you. When times are rough and you're not performing, you still have to be brave enough to head over to them and listen to their concerns. You have to. That's part of your job as a player. You can't hide when things aren't going well.
Oh, I have
So
a question.
Sharms,
Sorry.
So Sharms, you keep referring to the signage, and it wasn't aggressive or anything. So I'm going to read our friends from Waking the Red have fans unveiled one banner which read, "This badge don't belong to you," and the other one that got them in trouble was "Accept existence or expect resistance." So that was a tongue twister.
Is that
but nothing crazy, right?
Is that considered inflammatory? And
well, yeah. I mean, actually, well rhymed, to be honest.
It's a good band.
Yeah.
Also could be a Star Wars slogan, just saying.
Yeah. It wasn't, but to your point,
May the 4th was
it wasn't even it wasn't abusive. I think what turned them off was it was directed at ownership, not even the players. And that shows thin skin, and it shows a lack of self-esteem as an organization around TFC, meaning like they're easily, like it shows someone who's really defensive. And that's not a great look. Like I think the quote on our thumbnail was, "This is not a good road to go down to," or something like that. It's not. It's not a great look. It's actually a shite look.
It's not a good precedent. What I was going to say is Jimmy and Forrest, your time spent in England, and Forrest, I think you joked about it. You're saying like banners that said "Forrest, you suck" and things like that, which obviously never happened. But what would be the reaction from the players, other organizations, if a certain leadership in front office took umbrage at signage that was respectful but critical of the way that they'd been doing business, and then removed the banners or removed the people who had put them up there? Like, what would be the reaction kind of in-house, both within the club, in the Premier League or in the championship? And then why do you think in North America, like obviously we're still building our soccer culture, but North American sports, I think, take a completely different stance to these types of banners and criticisms?
Yeah, it's true. They try to protect their product. But in England, if they did that, any club, I think, it'd be a mass boycott. They wouldn't put up with it at all.
You see that, Craig, a lot more in the lower leagues in England as well. Like fans won't show up. They'll storm the offices of the director, for example. In the Prem, it's not quite so much because there is more consumers as opposed to fans, right? You have 60,000 fans at a stadium in the Prem. They're not all hardcore fans. There's a lot of tourists who aren't going to, make the same noise, perhaps, as the lower divisions. You see it now and again, but not too often. Whereas over here, I think you said it, Monger, how thin the skin is, and that is exactly what it is. TFC's always had an incredibly thin skin. But what I will say is, though, that it's been bad before, and they did turn it around. They did figure it out, and they became a model club for MLS.
So what was that year? You referred to the manager and the timing. When was that?
When was that, Jimmy? When was Aaron Vinter?
Aaron Vinter
13? 14?
Yeah, I think it was around that time.
Yeah. Roundabout. And it wasn't the lovely guy, Aaron Vinter. It didn't work out. But then they brought in not Tom Anselmi. He was there for years. Tim Lewicki.
Oh, Lewicki came in.
Right. And that's when they turned the corner.
Well, they did on the Raptors too.
It took a while. Yeah. And Leafs too, right?
Yeah.
Look at the success ever since.
Yeah.
But he came in with a tornado and said, "Why can't we be great?" Threw money at Jermaine Defoe, and it didn't work out. But they pivoted straight away, and they built from it. And we had Ryan Nelson actually on Jimmy's old boss a few weeks ago. We should repost that. Really good interview talking about those times just before then, and how the club was run and how frustrating Ryan Nelson found it. And I'm sure Jimmy did too at the time. But they did figure it out, and for a few years there, and it was just a few years, things were going really, really well. And MLS were like championing TFC. This is how you run a top club.
That's right.
And properly, and they won a championship.
Got to another they brought in Giovinco, Altidore, and Bradley, and those were three fantastic signings that really springboarded the club in their prime as well. They weren't old players coming over to finish off. They were in their prime.
So it's fixable, is my point, right? And I'm not saying they can fix it, because we've seen for most of the 18 years, Jesus Christ, it's a long time. It makes me feel so old, because I am.
Just go back to the paper bag, Sharma.
Seriously. But I mean, listen, they figured it out once. Doesn't mean they can't do it again, but man. Another comment we actually had from AJ in Montreal. Could it be? No, it's probably not Alistair. He's in Glasgow. That's probably the main reason.
Would be Ali in Montreal anyway. Wouldn't be AJ.
Wrong. Incorrect. I hope all those fans who left go straight to York Lions Stadium to support the two clubs who will appreciate their presence. Let's hope so. There are alternatives to TFC, by the way, football fans in Toronto.
Well, Montreal, CF Montreal fans, when I think around the rebrand, and they were furious. I think it was generally not very well received. I think that's established. But a lot of the exactly, which you still refer to them as, is just tragic.
The big snowflake.
A faction of the ultras went down to support Vermont Green in the USL.
Wow.
So I mean, I'm sure that's not the first story of that happening, and fans just getting up, being sick of the way that things are running or the on-pitch performances, and saying we've had it, and then just jumping on a different bandwagon. But I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm going to bring it back to this macro look. Like, do you think that there's a level of, not only from TFC, but in North American sport, that there's almost a level of condescension towards the fan if you view them simply as consumers?
Yes. It's an innocence from ownership, a lack of sophistication, who don't understand the culture and the fabric of soccer, which is different to every other sport. You can't just come in and Americanize it and say, oh, that's going to work, franchise boys and girls. No, there's so much more to soccer. It kind of works, doesn't it? It has worked quite a bit overseas over the years. Pretty big sport, I think it's fair to say. And they try and just come in and just sanitize it and do it this way. Is not going to work, I don't think. Shows how juvenile we are as a soccer nation, I think, probably.
It's true.
I also think if you were to compare it, for me, what the passion and the loyalty of people who follow clubs, it reminds me of, if I have any comparison, is Canadian national teams. I Craig and I bonded on Canada basketball, playing in the CONCACAF championship in 2002 or 2000, going to matches or going to games to watch on TV. Like, I'll watch anything if the Canadian flag, the maple leaf is attached to it. And I think that's the level of kind of not just passion, but enthusiasm. And I'm here until it ends. And if you don't understand that, MLSE, you're misunderstanding football and soccer across the board.
Well, yeah. And as fans, I mean, Keith Pelley's obviously sent this out because the crowd's getting smaller and smaller and people are getting more fed up. So he's tried to use this letter as a bit of damage control, that we're on this. And to be honest, I mean, obviously he's going to try to work as best he can to turn it around, but it's not happening quickly.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing the email. I mean, he did it. He probably had to do it. I don't know what more he can do at this point, but it's just, we've heard this stuff before, and that's what the fans are frustrated about. Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't care. It's just a different face, and it's in the same kind of suit. Yeah, saying the same stuff. So okay, show us some action. Yeah, and from management standpoint, it must be frustrating because they know that they need changes, but they can't really do anything right now. Could they have done more in the previous windows? Oh, who knows? I'm sure they tried. They tried to move Lorenzo Insigne. They tried, but he holds all the eggs in that basket, right? So it could have been a very different situation if he allowed them to do what is right. Or
the ghost of Bob Bradley still haunting TFC, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, we have this one. If Lorenzo Insigne was a good guy, he would eat crow and leave. $13 million for one goal, a joke. See, that's in David Gordon. I get the frustration in that regard, but at the same time, Insigne signed a contract, right? He didn't steal the money. Well, some would say he is stealing the money, but he was given a contract and given the right. I understand why he doesn't want to. He can't just walk away. I wouldn't walk away, but there may have been opportunities in the off season for him to walk away with his pocket full of money. He chose not to.